Joining us on POTUS, Dr. William Rosenberg, professor of political science at Drexel University. He is tweeting at Dr. B. Rosenberg. Morning, Bill.
Good morning.
So we have this conversation that's going on, a debate between the administration, specifically the president, and a lot of Democrats and a lot of Republicans, too, about whether or not he has the authority to declare a national emergency at the border, whether there is or is not one. There have been 16 lawsuits. 16 states have filed lawsuits, joined by some private lawsuits, including the American Civil Liberties Union. What is the politics of all of this, Bill?
Well, I think what we're looking at is a huge conflict that's been brewing for quite a while. The president has made a campaign pledge running in 2016 that he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it from coast to coast. And what's happened is we've gone through a number of iterations of this, but finally we came to the push point where the president and the Congress were head-to-head, and they resolved it by passing a $1.3 billion border security bill, and the president, as he's signing it, says this is not enough, it's not what I asked for, and if you do this, I'm going to declare a national crisis. He did declare a national crisis. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. And he has probably the authority to declare the crisis. The question is whether or not he is going to go about resolving the issue in a way that's going to be acceptable to Congress and the American people. And that's where the real push comes in. So you mentioned that 16 states have already filed suit. That's the court process to try and resolve this. There's also the process of Congress trying to resolve this. And what we're going to see in this very hectic week is that tomorrow Congress in the House is going to vote on a resolution to stop the president from moving money to build his wall, and will probably pass. And then after that, the Senate is forced, because of the way the Congress is set up, to have to respond to it. And they're probably going to also vote to go against the president in terms of taking money that's already been allocated for other purposes. The real crunch is going to come, though, when the president comes back with his constitutional power to veto the legislation, and that's where the rub's going to come in. The rub's going to be because the House and the Senate will both have to have two-thirds majority to override the president's veto. They might get that in the House, but they're probably not going to get it in the Senate. So in effect, at the end of the day, we're going to see this public stance largely that's going to have to be taken by Republicans and largely in the Senate to say that they're going to stand with the president in terms of continuing to build this wall. And that's going to be an election issue in 2016.
It sounds like a win-win-win politically. And I say that, in a somewhat whimsical way, because Democrats are able to say, we've been doing what we can to try to stop the president. We need to get a new president in there. President Trump's going to say, look, I've been trying to do what I can. I had to take extreme measures, and I'm trying to deliver on the campaign promise. And Republicans, well, I'm not sure exactly how they'll play it out. It depends on the votes they take, but they know that they will not override a president's veto. So it sounds like they're all going to raise money off of this issue.
Well, I agree with you on many counts, but the one point that we didn't make is how will this move us forward in the future with regards to national crises? The real challenge is going to be if a president cannot like what Congress does and can basically force the issue as one person to spend money any way he wants, he's taking away the major power of the Congress, the power of the purse. And when there's no longer a Republican in office, the Republicans are going to have to deal with the fact that they basically authorized a president to do something which many would consider sort of outlandish, to sort of run around the power of Congress when the Congress is largely arguing that there is no crisis. If there becomes a president who wants to declare a health crisis and get more money for health care or a ban on handguns, it's going to bring us back to this situation, and it's going to be a major friction point. I think, we also have to recognize that individual actions at certain points in time have lasting effects. I mean, we're looking at that right now with not even a law, but a policy by the Justice Department not to indict a sitting president. Congress never passed a law. The courts never really ruled on this, but because it's a policy in place for a long time, that's what's really dictating what's going to happen with the president and the whole Mueller affair. So, things have consequences. They're not just an individual act at one particular point in time.
And to that point, Senate procedure, for example, on judicial appointments, which now only require a majority, and that means that Republicans have pretty much been appointing whomever they want or whoever the president wants, although there may be some more pushback on that because there is supposedly going to be one judicial appointment that has 2 blue slips that have been withheld from senators. This is an unusual sort of arcane process. But to your point, decisions are made on procedure. I wanted to mention the Mueller investigation, and there is some sense, although we have to put the big caveat on here, nobody knows what Robert Mueller knows except for Robert Mueller and God. But whether or not he submits his report this week, it then goes to the Attorney General. The Attorney General has the power to make the decision about how much of that is released. How does this play out politically, Bill?
Well, I think we saw a taste of this during the Attorney General Barr's hearings for his confirmation. He made the decision public that he was going to try and release as much as he possibly could, with quote with some parameters associated with it, and those sounded a little bit like if someone was investigated but not found to be involved, that were going to be removed, or national security issues. But at the end of the day, the American public has paid for this report. At the end of the day, if we only get a very broad roadmap of what has happened, we already know all that information. This has been built into the price of the negative consequence of what the president may or may not have done in his campaign. So we're not going to be very much further along. And the people that support the president, his base, regardless of what the report says, are going to say that this is all fake news and made up, and we're not going to worry about it. And the people who support the Mueller probe, and largely the more progressive and liberals in the United States, are going to say, well, we didn't find enough, we have to continue to go on. And I think what we found is that Mueller is a very clever guy. He went not only with his original charge about finding out about Russian influence in the election, but was able to use a clause in his charging sort of orders to say, and anything else that is discovered along the way. And he's done several referrals to various federal prosecutors around the country, and some state attorney generals have picked up this as well. So even when the Mueller investigation, quote, ends, Trump's investigation will not, because of all these other activities that's going on, as well as the activities of Congress with investigative committees. So while we're looking to see the report and what's in the report, the end of the process is nowhere near.
Reminds me of Masala dying, and Ben-Hur says, "It goes on." It goes on. It will go on forever. Hey, Bill, thanks so much. As always, appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Dr. William Rosenberg, professor of political science at Drexel University. He is joining us to talk about some of the issues before Congress and the presidency. He is tweeting at Dr. B. Rosenberg, Rosenberg.